Truth, Money, and Freedom podcast.
Welcome back to another riveting edition of Truth, Money, and Freedom. Today is Thursday, the 21st of May, 2020. Hey there, gang. The markets are red today. And so at any rate, I thought maybe I shouldn't take any chances. I would go ahead and get ready in case there's another outbreak of coronavirus somewhere, in Russia or China, somewhere in Europe, possibly Africa. I mean, there's just no way to know. But I thought that I would take the time here to let you know something about my wife. She's wonderful. My wife is an incredibly intelligent lady, and she figured out social distancing, decades ago, and I mean decades ago. Here's a picture of our bed, and you'll notice that there's red tape dividing right down the center, and the right-hand side of the bed, that's my wife's, and you'll notice that well, actually you can't see it. It's one of those select comfort beds, so she has hers, soft the way she likes it, kind of like between mattress and waterbed status, because it's an air mattress. So she sleeps in extreme comfort, despite everything that's going on. I mean, she's pretty comfortable. And so you guys have probably already guessed where I sleep, and that's right here, the couch in the living room. So the social distancing thing has not been a problem. We've been practicing that for, how long have we been married? 23 years. So, but at any rate, I thought that maybe you guys would, relate to that. So, at any rate, I thought I'd talk a little bit about Greta, who, no, not that Greta, Even, I'm talking about the Greta that was relevant and then suddenly became irrelevant in the news. That's right, that's the Greta. So, what is Greta up to? What's she up to? Okay, well, Greta Thunberg has been repurposed for CNN town hall on coronavirus. That's wonderful. I believe in repurposing. I recycle, like 2-liter bottles, like you get with soda or whatever. You can turn those into planters. That's an excellent repurposing of a 2-liter bottle. So I get it. Okay, let's read on. Greta Thunberg has overcome her ruined childhood to become an expert on COVID-19. Oh, okay. So we shift from one UN agenda to another one. I get where Greta's going with this. It's wonderful. Let's take a look at the CNN premiere for this show Greta's on.
Join Anderson Cooper and Dr. Sanjay Gupta with former acting CDC Director Richard Besser, former Health and Human Services Secretary Kathleen Sebelius, and activist Greta Thunberg for Coronavirus, Facts and Fears, live Thursday at 8.
Okay, so it appears Greta has become an echo chamber for the mainstream media and for the authorities.
How dare you!
Take on COVID-19. So basically, not really an expert, just kind of an echo chamber. Well, I suppose if you become irrelevant in global warming because the entire world is being faced with a pandemic that's going to kill everybody, you have to go and shift your focus from one calamity to another. So I guess I kind of get it. So I'm wondering why Greta's doing this. And let's see. Greta Thunberg sets up a nonprofit with alternative Nobel Prize money. Oh, she's winning the alternative of the Nobel Prize. But that's for her climate activist activities. Well, I wonder if she can get the alternative Nobel Prize doing this for echoing for the government on what's going on with COVID-19. Okay, well, I think that that we should probably start understanding what's going on with what Greta wants. What is it Greta wants? And I took a little look into that. Not really surprised by what I found. But basically, Greta wants whatever the United Nations wants. So she seems to be very much into whatever the United Nations wants to do. For instance, ecosystem restoration. If you remember in her speech to the United Nations, she talked about entire ecosystems collapsing. Here's a clip of that.
You have stolen my dreams and my childhood with your empty words, and yet I'm one of the lucky ones. People are suffering, people are dying, entire ecosystems are collapsing.
Okay, so Greta is absolutely convinced that the United Nations is true and accurate in their reporting on the collapsing ecosystems. I have several questions for Greta. I wish I could see her in person because doing what the government says all the time is not necessarily the best way to go about your life. For instance, wearing crap like this and obeying And by the way, thank you for putting up with my sauciness there, but let's get serious. Okay, it's brass tacks time. Let's take a look at the trailer for this exciting CNN interview with Richard Besser. Let's see, Kathleen Sebelius. Oh yeah, that's right, the one who oversaw Obamacare. All right, awesome. And of course, Greta.
Join Anderson Cooper and Dr. Sanjay Gupta with former acting CDC Director Richard Besser, former Health and Human Services Secretary Kathleen Sebelius, and activist Greta Thunberg for Coronavirus, Facts and Fears, live Thursday at 8.
Okay, as riveting, exciting, and let's just say compelling as that spot was, that trailer, I think it's time for us to hear what Greta had to say in this 9-minute long interview. By the way, I'm just going to put Greta clips in. I'm not going to put anything else from any of these butt clowns on here. We just want to hear what Greta says. Let's take a listen.
You have millions of young people who follow you online, and I know you've been talking with them about taking this virus seriously. Your symptoms, whether you had COVID or not, the symptoms you had were very mild. You were saying milder than other times you've been sick. But one of the points you made, I was reading on your Instagram, is that kids should take it seriously because not only could there be underlying conditions, but also even if their symptoms are very mild, it's still possible to infect family members.
Yes, exactly, and that's why I decided to post about it, to sort of spread the information that many people don't even notice that they have symptoms, and then they might spread the virus without even knowing it. And there, especially we young people have a very big responsibility because we aren't usually the ones in the most risk. We might not experience the symptoms as bad as many others. So we have to be extra careful because our actions can be the difference between life and death for many others.
You were awarded a $100,000 grant from I believe it was a Danish foundation, and you were donating that $100,000 to UNICEF to help protect kids from the fallout of this pandemic. And I know you're raising even more money for UNICEF, and I know another organization has done a matching grant on your $100,000. How do you see that money, or how do you hope that money is going to be used?
Well, first of all, I did that, and we have launched a new campaign to help support UNICEF during the COVID-19 pandemic, and that is because during this crisis, during any crisis, it is always the most vulnerable people who are hit the hardest, and that is children, especially in the global south, in people in the poorest parts of the world, and especially people living in conflict zones and refugee camps.
Because there's so much focus on coronavirus, there's a lot of kids around the world who may die of things that are very treatable, but because medical systems are overwhelmed, it's going to impact children in ways that a lot of people don't really anticipate. Even all the schools shutting down, for many kids, that's their primary source of a nutritious meal.
Yeah, and sanitation, and I mean, we're talking about washing our hands and staying home, but I mean, for many people in the world, they do not have access to clean water or sanitation, to soap, and they do not even have a house to stay home in. And it's very hard for many to keep social distancing, and we have to. That's why we need to help the people who are most vulnerable to this crisis in ways that we might not think about here in the global north, especially people in the.
Okay, gang, that's about all I can take of Greta. She's just an echo chamber. She's supposed to be able to relate better to kids around the world, so they can take the kids and take their efforts away from global warming and make sure it's placed where it belongs. COVID-19, once again, satisfying a UN agenda. Now, the UN has decided on a decade of ecosystem restoration, and those plans are probably on the back burner now. Actually, no, looked like they went ahead and put it from 2020 to 2021. So our ecosystem restoration is on hold for another 6 months while we deal with the coronavirus. Then we can get back to scaring the piss out of the people that the world is warming up and we're all going to die. So there is no end to what we need to do according to the United Nations. But Greta set up a perfect example of being an echo chamber. If you guys have ever heard that statement before, that phrase before, echo chamber, that's all she's doing is echoing whatever the authorities are saying. And so I don't make fun of her. I try not to make fun of her. Let me read this before I finish out this video. And this is at the end of the article I've linked down below from Zero Hedge. Let me go ahead and enlarge it so you guys can read along. Okay, it's this last one here. To be clear, you shouldn't hold contempt for Thunberg. You should feel bad for her. She's a deeply troubled young woman with a long history of struggles and depression, OCD, eating disorders, bullying, and more. Sadly, she has latched on to an alarmist, ascientific doomsday tale of a pending climate apocalypse as a way of coping. There's nothing horribly wrong with this. Thunberg is just a young woman of admirable passion and should pursue her beliefs. I agree. What's disturbing is to see liberal journalists exploiting such a young, ill-informed activist to push their political agenda, even to her detriment. We couldn't agree more. And I couldn't agree more. They are taking advantage of this young lady, and she doesn't even know it. However, she is getting money to do so. This has been covered as well. Now, I don't know that she's keeping the money for herself. She's setting up a foundation. She's doing all kinds of money with doing all kinds of things with the money for the foundation. But it is important for us to understand the psychology of what's happening here. This young lady has shifted from global warming, we're all going to die, to COVID-19, we're all going to die. Whatever the UN agenda is, whatever the globalists are pushing, Greta will go along and become a mouthpiece for it. So it's kind of like being a prostitute in a way. So I pray for this young lady that that she will actually wake up and see what she's become, what she's doing. But there is a possibility she knows very well what she's doing. We just don't know, but I do think that she's being used. That's my personal opinion. So that's really what I want to talk about today, is just cover this nonsense with the masks and, just the overreach, the financial collapse, the little cattle fencing they have outside of retail stores, and you guys know what I'm talking about. All the nonsense that comes along with COVID-19. All the totalitarianism that's coming out of it. And by the way, I see it in retail stores as much as I see it with government. People, psychopaths and sociopaths, take a ticket, get in line, because there is a job for you in COVID-19 to be a bully, to yell at people, to scream at people, and more importantly, to turn them into the authorities when they're not wearing a mask, or they're not wearing gloves, or they're not following proper social distancing. So psychopaths and sociopaths will be fully employed during this crisis. All right, guys, you all take care. You have a wonderful, wonderful day. May God bless you all.